I used to be a prolific skin picker, or in other words, I used to have dermatillomania, and I officially do not have that anymore. And I've been clean for about, I would say I'm 29 now, and I think I stopped at around 26 or 7. So 2 or 3 years, I have been completely clean. I don't even feel like I'm at risk of going back to picking at my skin. I feel like that habit has been officially stomped out, and I want that for you in 2025. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I stopped picking at my skin, and I'm going to try and break it down into actionable steps that you can actually follow. So it's not just like a bunch of inspirational speech that doesn't actually help you. So I'm going to break it down. Just quickly, I'll touch on what skin picking is or what dermatillomania is, same thing. So that anybody watching this who isn't sure if they have it will be able to figure out whether it's something they do have and whether it's a problem they need to address. I'm not going to look at the official description of dermatillomania, but put into layman's terms, I imagine it is something like being unable to stop yourself from picking at your skin or compulsively picking at your skin. And that might look like, and this is what it looked like for me, every day I came home from work, I would be hungry, I'd want to sit down, but I would ignore all of those desires and I would go straight to the bathroom mirror and I would get this close to it and I would basically look for anything that I deemed as an imperfection in my face and I would pick at it. I would try and remove that imperfection. And in my mind, I think this was subconsciously and sometimes consciously because I felt out of control of my skin. Let's get that clear. I felt out of control of my skin. I wasn't controlling my acne very well. And that led to me wanting to control my skin by dermatillomania, picking out any blemishes, sometimes even before they turned into blemishes. Sometimes I would see a blackhead, for example, or something that looked like it was going to turn into a spot in the coming days, and I would forcibly remove it from my skin with my fingers. I might have always washed my hands, but I don't really think that matters. You're still forcing imperfections out of your face. And this was something that I did every day, pretty much. And then afterwards, I would have this red face. It would be like I was in a daze. No one could snap me out of it. My boyfriend at the time was desperate for me to stop, but I just didn't listen, and I couldn't even control myself. So it was really a compulsion. I didn't feel like I had a choice. Things like that, where you find yourself in a situation where you've picked at your face and you really didn't want to pick at your face, but you actually felt like you had no control over it. That is my personal definition of dermatillomania. It's uncontrollable. You're forever saying, I'm not going to do that again, and what do you know, you do it again in like 2 days' time. You physically can't stop yourself from doing it. That is my personal definition. It's not quite the same thing as trichotillomania, which is the same thing but for hair. So sometimes people pick out their eyelashes, their eyebrows, or their hair from their head or on their body. That's trichotillomania, but today I'm going to be talking about dermatillomania, which is picking at your skin. It might also look like you picking at scabs on your legs. Sometimes people have scabs on their legs that they physically can't let heal. So they'll have one scab on their leg, which they pick, it starts to scab over again. They pick at that scab and it actually never gets a chance to heal. That's another thing it might look like. It also might look like you being on your phone, but like subconsciously scanning your body for anything that feels out of the norm for you to pick at. So I'm going to break down how I stopped doing it in 3 main parts, and I've thought carefully about how to make it actionable. The first part is interrupting the pattern. You have developed a behavior which is a pattern. Everyone's pattern might look different, but you've developed a habit that you do daily. A habit just as much as going to the gym after work is a habit, or having a snack every day at 11 a.m. It's just something that you do, and this behavior, dermatillomania, skin picking, has now become a habit for you. So you have to put rules in place to break that habit, and I call this part interrupting the pattern. You need to interrupt the pattern you've created in order to form a new habit. The first tip that you've probably already seen on social media, but if you haven't, you need to know about it because it's one of the biggest ones for me, is simply turning the light off when you do skincare. So say you do your skincare at night and that's when you notice you pick. You basically can't do your skincare with the light on anymore. You have to use either a candle or your phone light. I often use my phone light, or you get a little lamp in the bathroom and you put it in the bathroom. But you don't have the big light on for anything anymore, especially when it comes to skincare. Does that mean you lead a life of darkness? Kind of, but let me tell you, I'm on the other side and it's worth it. This also interrupts the pattern because instead of immediately going to the bathroom and looking at your face, it's now dark, so you can't do the thing that you were going to do, or at least you're blocking it in some way. The next way you can interrupt the pattern is by thinking about what your pattern is. So for example, mine was coming back from work, ignoring everything and anyone and going straight to the bathroom. Now that I've turned the light off, that's going to be a lot harder for me to do, but you can go one step further and change your routine. So say, and a lot of people are going to say, I don't want to change my routine, but you kind of might have to consider doing it, or at least just try it for a month. And if you really want to go back to your old routine, you can do that, but at least you gave it a shot at working first. I'm a very routine orientated person, and I always get really attached to my routine and kind of upset if I can't do my routine, but I often find that by experimenting with something new, I actually find I like the new routine better. So it is worth at least giving it a go. So say you go to the gym in the morning, then you come back after work and you pick. You might want to try going to the gym in the evening, or you might want to try walking the long way home, or you might want to try having a show that you watch every day after work. Or you might want to swap the unhealthy habit, picking at your face, with a healthy habit like cooking a new recipe every day after work. It ties in nicely with this time of year because you can swap and break that pattern and replace the habit you don't want with something that you do want to become a part of your lifestyle. For example, like HelloFresh, that type of thing. Whatever you do, the whole point of breaking the pattern is you cannot expect yourself to suddenly get rid of this behavior that you have been a slave to for the last however many years or months by doing the same thing. You have to break the pattern, you have to try something new. Otherwise, that's like an alcoholic. And I am going to make the alcoholic comparison because that is a compulsion as well. It's an addiction. And this is not that dissimilar from that. It's a similar type of behavior. That would be like an alcoholic saying, oh, I'm just going to go cold turkey. Well, that person is medically addicted, so that's kind of going to be impossible for them to do. You can't just break the habit with willpower. You need to put things in place to break the pattern. Another thing you can do to break the pattern is literally take the light bulbs out of your lights. Sometimes the silliest things help the most. And lastly, something you can do is remove mirrors from where you often pick. I didn't mention that to start with because I know that's a really obvious one, but in case you haven't heard that one before, say I have a mirror right there, I have a mirror over there, I can just take them off the wall and I can like put them in my housemate's room and say, don't let me in your room. Or I can give them to my mum and dad, or I can put them outside on the balcony, or something that will make it very hard for me to use them. So that was breaking the pattern. And the second chunk I want to talk about is marking your trigger spots. I think with skin picking, it's absolutely crucial to think deeply about when you pick, where you pick, why you pick. You might not know why you pick, but essentially you want to bring this unconscious pattern into your conscious and think about it very intentionally. So I want you to go around your house and mark out places that are your trigger spots, where you like to pick. And I'll give you some examples because you might be thinking that's a bit random. In my parents' house, where I used to pick a lot, they have a silver metallic toaster with a light above it from the counter. So I used to get down on my knees, and I would look at my face in that shiny toaster, and it would make everything look bad because who looks good in that kind of down lighting? But that is one of the key places that I would pick. And if that were my toaster in my house, I would have to move the toaster or maybe get a new one. Maybe you want to do what I do now, which is keep a toaster in the cupboard and only get it out when I use it. Another trigger spot for me is the microwave. I've got a microwave that's built into the unit and it has a light source coming from this side so I can see perfectly any kind of imperfections. Whenever I walk up to the microwave to use it, I actually sense that I'm near a trigger spot and I purposefully don't look in it because I know if I look in it and I see some tiny imperfection that I don't want to see, I will start to think about it. And really, that isn't visible to anybody else or me if I wasn't looking in a microwave with the perfect light angle coming from the side. So this is one of the benefits of marking out your trigger spots, is that you start to walk around your house and preempt where you might pick and choose not to pick. Whereas before, you didn't have these places marked out in your head, so you just wandered around your house and you fell victim. You fell victim to the microwave. We've all fallen victim to the microwave. So that's what I want you to do. Go around your house and mark out trigger spots, and you can either move those items or you can mark them, for example, with like a post-it note or a piece of paper or something that will draw your attention to it as you approach it. And it will look ugly for a while, but trust me, you'll get used to it. And then after a while, when you think things have improved, you can remove them. Because after a while of not having that habit changes, and then you will find that the temptation is actually no longer there like it was because you've broken the habit, you've broken the pattern. And then the third part of this video is changing your beliefs around the behavior. This is a difficult one, but it's really, really powerful when you learn how easy it is for humans to actually change their thought patterns and how much they impact your life. If you're interested in this topic, there are so many good neuroplasticity podcasts. There are lots of really good creators on TikTok as well who talk about this. this, but essentially we all have beliefs around pretty much any behavior in our life. And I'm actually also drawing from a couple of years of therapy as well, schema therapy, which is very focused on how our beliefs shape our actions in reality. So this isn't heebie-jeebie, this is scientifically proven. Somewhere deep inside, you have a set of beliefs around skin picking. For example, I used to feel like skin picking gave me control over my skin. My skin used to not behave very well. Now I've mastered my routine, but my skin from about 16 to 24 or 5, it just did not behave because I didn't understand that I was using all the wrong products. I had undiagnosed PCOS, etc. I could go on all the reasons that it wasn't looking how I wanted it to look. So I felt really out of control. And I think that's how a lot of people with skin problems feel. You feel at the mercy of your skin. And so with skin picking, I felt like I was taking control, like I finally took the power back, because I thought, well, I can see there's a little pimple forming here, but if I, get rid of that, it was kind of gross, but if I like squeeze that and remove whatever is stuck, I know it doesn't always work like that with a pimple, but if I can remove it before it turns into something, then I have power over my skin and I won't get that pimple. Because I was kind of angry that I was getting pimples because I felt out of control and I felt frustrated at life, and I felt frustrated with the NHS as well. Even though my mum literally works for the NHS, I felt angry at the whole system, to be honest, and I think a lot of us do. But deep down it was all about control. I felt like I was going to be able to control the outcome. And I think that a lot of you who are watching this probably also have that belief. So you need to bring the belief to the surface. You might also be, and at the time I was in a very stressful, abusive relationship. So that was certainly playing into it, although I probably can't verbally explain how. But let's just call it stress. A lot of people stress pick. Even if you can't remove the stressor from your life, you do need to verbalize your beliefs around why you do it and really dig deep. Maybe even write them down so they feel real rather than just in your head. And to break habits like this, you need to challenge those beliefs, because a lot of the beliefs are just not true. I'll give you an example, and this is hopefully going to be the example that helps most people. You think you've got control over your skin when you pick it, and you think that when you pick it, you prevent bad outcomes from happening. You think that when you pick your skin, you won't get that spot. So you challenge the belief by saying, how has that really worked out for you? This is when it clicked for me. That's working out really badly for me. Like, I think that I'm taking control over my skin by picking at it. I think that I'm not going to get a spot by picking at it before it's even bloomed. How has that been working out for me? Well, it's actually been working out really terribly, thanks. Because every time I pick at a spot, I get a red mark around the spot that lasts days. I get weird texture around the spot that's difficult to cover. It makes my skin tone more uneven because it went from being, pale with a little red mark that might have gone away on its own to now me guaranteeing that I'm going to have a spot, scar, mark that needs to fade times 100 all over my face. Like, you actually, every time you pick your face, you make the outcome worse. You actually guarantee that the outcome is going to be worse. And if you think to yourself, well, sometimes I actually get the spot out and I have prevented a spot forming, fine. There's always going to be flukes, but the majority of the time you feel embarrassed of your red face. You feel embarrassed of your red face. You feel full of shame. You talk like crap to yourself because you don't understand why you can't break this pattern. You have to say to your friends or your partner, I'm never going to do that again, and you find yourself doing it again. If you don't pick, actually, you just get a pimple and then it might take some time and the pimple goes away. But if you pick, you welcome all of those outcomes into your life. The shame, the embarrassment, the frustration with yourself, you weaken the relationship you have with yourself, and also the physical outcomes like the scar, the mark, the spot. So actually, your belief around control is false. You have to challenge the beliefs you have around it and prove that they are false, because they are. And the final thing I'll say on this is, what is that quote? It's like the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you've been a skin picker for even a few months to a few years now, or a decade, you have been picking at your skin over and over again, hoping that the result is different. You're hoping that your skin will look better if you do, but you now have months to years of data that shows you that it always looks worse. And even if it doesn't always look worse, 95% of the time, it probably looks worse. So you have enough data now to make that decision and understand doing the same thing over and over again, picking your spots over and over again, hoping that your skin will look better when it has never looked better after you've done that. That is the definition of crazy. You're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting it to suddenly be different. Obviously it's not, so you have to do something different to get a different result. I fear this video is going to be really long, but I hope it made some sense. And if you want me to dig deeper into it, I absolutely can, but I didn't want it to be too overwhelming. So hopefully by breaking it down into those 3 sections, you'll be able to get something from it, and maybe one of those things gave you like a moment where everything clicked, or like an aha moment, because that's what I really try and do with my content. Love to hear your feedback. Hope you're all doing well. Leave any questions in the comments.